What's up guys, it's Jordan. In this video, I'm going to be sharing everything I eat in a day, but with a focus on calcium. I eat plant-based or a vegan diet, which means I'm going to be getting all of my calcium today from plants, and I'm going to show you how you can too. Probably already know why, you need to be getting some, but I'm gonna go over a little bit more in depth about why it's important, the best plant-based sources, how much you need in a day, all the other things that deal with calcium in the body, like absorption, getting too much, not getting enough, signs and symptoms of all those things. I'm gonna cover it all in this video. Calcium is important for strong and healthy bones. Did you also know it enables our heart to beat, our muscles to contract, and for our blood to clot? Super important mineral. It is found in soil. When animals eat from the earth, they're eating all of that soil and it's being absorbed, and that's why it's readily available in dairy products. Fun fact, 99% of our calcium is found in our bones and in our teeth. Our bodies cannot produce its own calcium, which is why we need it in our diet. We lose calcium every day through our natural detox processes. So through our elimination, through our hair, our skin, our nails, it all comes off as those things kind of slough off throughout the day. When we don't get enough calcium, our body has to take it from our bones, which is where it's stored. And this is okay every once in a while, but when we don't get enough calcium and enough calcium absorbed in the body, that's when we have a problem because our body takes too much from our bones. That's when our bones become weaker and a lot easier to break. Okay, so I'm talking about why we need it, but how much do you need in a day? Currently, the recommended daily values for calcium for females aged 19 through 50 is 1,000 milligrams a day. It does bump up to 1,200 milligrams a day if you're 51 or older. And then for males, it stays pretty stable at about 1,000 milligrams a day. It bumps up a little bit over the age of 70. During puberty, males and females both need about 1,300 milligrams a day because that's when they're growing. So what does that mean for plant-based eaters? In the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, they found that because plant-based or vegetarian vegan eaters have a lower intake of protein and sodium, not that they're getting too low of those amounts, it's just naturally they have a lower baseline for those amounts, they actually don't need as much calcium because, as I'm going to explain later, protein and sodium can inhibit absorption of calcium. So because we're already eating lower of those things, we actually absorb more of the calcium that we eat from the sources that we do eat it from. Pretty cool. This journal article would argue that plant-based eaters actually only need somewhere between 500 milligrams and 741 milligrams a day. But that's just one study that I found, and in nutrition science, you can find studies on both ends of the spectrum telling you you need more than that, telling you need less than that. Never take one study at face value. I'm going to leave all the links to all the research that I've used to create this video down below in the description. So if you're like, I want to know more about that, check out the links below in the description and they will have a lot more detail for you. The best food sources of calcium on a plant-based diet include your leafy green vegetables, especially your cruciferous vegetables like your kale, your collard greens. Actually, collard greens are the leader in the most amount of calcium. Broccoli, Chinese cabbage, regular cabbage, dried figs have a lot of calcium, soybeans, and in addition to that, tofu, because it's usually actually put in a calcium solution when you buy it. Tofu has a ton of calcium, which is why I had a tofu scramble today. White beans and any calcium fortified non-dairy product. Any of the soy milks, almond milks, cashew milks, hemp milk, rice milk, whatever kind of plant-based milk you like, the majority of them are fortified with calcium, just like dairy milks are fortified with vitamin D and all the other things that they're fortified with. But you've got to shake the carton, because when products are fortified with different minerals and vitamins, they drop to the bottom of the carton. So if you haven't picked it up in a while, you've got to shake it to redistribute all those good vitamins and minerals. I had some fortified non-plant-based milk today, and actually 1 cup of that milk accounted for 45% of my daily need for calcium. So if you just drink 1 cup of a fortified nut milk or any other kind of plant milk, you're gonna get pretty close to half your calcium for that day. Orange juice is also typically fortified with calcium, so if you love your OJ, you can get some OJ that's fortified with calcium. Lots of boxed cereals come with fortified calcium as well. Let's talk about absorption. I feel like people are always like, oh yeah, plants have those in them, but they don't get absorbed in the body. Really? Yes, they do. That's their natural form. Of course they get absorbed in our body. Calcium is best absorbed when you kind of spread it out throughout the day. So you have some at breakfast, some at lunch, and some at dinner. That's easier for your body to absorb. Calcium absorption can be decreased with high amounts of protein, high amounts of sodium, and high amounts of caffeine. If you're a moderate caffeine drinker, like I'm talking 1 to 2 cups of coffee per day, 1 to 2 teas a day, you're fine. It doesn't make that big of a difference. It's a matter of 1 to 2 milligrams that you're not absorbing. So it's only if you're drinking lots of energy drinks. Don't do that for multiple reasons. Also, many of you probably already know that calcium is connected to vitamin D. Vitamin D is the hormone that regulates calcium. So you see why they are related. So it's important to have adequate levels of vitamin D in order to have the best absorption for calcium. Maybe you're concerned that you're not getting enough calcium and you want to know what the symptoms are, what the signs are that you have a deficiency. The biggest symptom would be when you have a minor fall, or you bump something that normally wouldn't cause that big of an injury, and you have a breakage, your bone breaks. That is typically a huge red flag that your bones are really brittle and really weak. Another symptom would be long-term muscle cramping. So that's very different than short-term muscle cramping. Short-term muscle cramping from, different tension positions that you might be in during the day, or a good long exercise session. Those are fine. Those eventually go away. But if you've got chronic long-term muscle cramping, which could be diagnosed by a physician or your healthcare practitioner, that's also a sign of low calcium levels. If you've been diagnosed with hypoparathyroidism, that is when your parathyroid is not working as it should be, and that is what helps regulate calcium in the body. So if you've been diagnosed with that, you could be at risk for a calcium deficiency. It's also important to talk about getting too much calcium. Too much calcium is not fun. It causes constipation, can create kidney stones, and it can actually weaken your bones to get too much calcium. And it interferes with how your heart and your brain work. So you don't want to over supplement. The upper limit for calcium per day is 2,500 milligrams. If you're concerned about bone health, in addition to calcium, it's also important to remember exercise. So you want to be doing some weight-bearing exercises. Even going for a brisk walk, getting out there on the pavement, that's really good for your bones. It doesn't necessarily have to be strength training. But if you've got some weights, definitely try some strength training. I like to do it at least once a week. It just makes my muscles feel really good. Or I also love, you guys know, I love my yoga and Pilates. Those are all really great exercises that support your bone health. Last but not least, we need to talk about if you need to supplement calcium. When you supplement with something, you're taking a very large amount of it all at once. That intense amount of calcium in the body increases the amount of calcium in our blood, right? Because it goes to our bloodstream. But remember, like I talked about before, one of the things that calcium does is it helps with blood clotting. So what some studies are finding is that because there's an increased amount of blood clotting going on with this increased amount of calcium that's hanging out in our blood, it's making us more at risk for heart problems, essentially increasing the risk of clots to the heart and to the brain. Not good. As you can tell, calcium is one of these minerals that interact with so many other things in the body. We've talked about protein, we've talked about vitamin D, we've talked about sodium. I want to end by saying that it's really important not to take a reductionist approach with nutrition or just to be wary of it. We can get really hyper-focused on micronutrients. I think a holistic view of nutrition is so important because that's the way our food is made. Whole plant foods come in a perfect package for us to consume, and it's important to remember that they're not just one thing. A food is not just protein, it's not just carbs, it's not just fat, it's not just calcium. It's all these other things going on in that one food, and we've got to be mindful that all of those things combined are what make it healthy for us. Here is everything that I ate today. I put it all in the Chronometer website. I will link that site below, but here you can see everything that I ate today, and then it shows a breakdown of calories, but what we're concerned about is calcium. And look, I got 134% of my daily calcium. And when you hover over it, it tells you exactly how many milligrams that you got. If we scroll down, we can also hover over the percentage and see the top foods that I ate that gave me the most calcium. Tofu was number one, then my plant milk and my kale and my tahini. So those were my top sources of calcium for the day. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my other two videos in this little plant-based nutrition series I've been doing. I've done one so far on fiber and on iron. A lot of people requested that I do vitamin B12 next, so if you agree or you have another one that you really want me to do, make sure you leave that in the comments below and like this video. That's all for me today. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you liked this video, make sure you subscribe by hitting that little red button below, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye! Something in my hair. My face. Okay. Calcium. Okay, scrap all that. So from the research I done,